Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Session with Quill. And on today's episode of Session with Quill, we'll be talking about vaginal yeast infection, scientifically known as vaginitis or vulvaginitis candida. What is vaginitis? Vaginitis is also known as vulvaginitis, and it's an inflammation or infection that affects the vagina of a woman or the vulva, which is the external part of a woman's genital. Vaginitis is mostly common in women in their reproductive years, and this is due to the change in balance of the bacteria or the yeast in the woman's vagina. What's the cause of vaginosis, you would ask? A bacteria called bacterial vaginosis is the most common vaginal infection that happens in women of age 15 to 44, and this is due to the imbalance or change in balance of the bacteria or yeast in the woman's vagina. Other factors that might affect the change of bacteria in the body might include taking of antibiotics, using of IUDs, having many sexual partners, or having unprotected sex with a new sexual partner. Now, yeast infection or yeast. The scientific name for yeast is known as candida, and yeast infection occurs when there's an overgrowth of candida in the vagina. Yeast is a fungus that lives almost everywhere, including your body. What causes overgrowth of yeast in the body includes taking too much sugar, having poor hygiene, and having many sexual partners can cause the overgrowth of yeast in the body. Now you ask yourself, how can sugar cause overgrowth of yeast in the body? Okay, now let me tell you this. Yeast lives everywhere, and yeast is in the body. Yeast survives on sugar to grow. Now, the more you take sugar in your body, the more there's an overgrowth of yeast in the body. Now, I said something earlier that when there's an imbalance between the good and harmful bacteria in the vagina, in the woman's vagina, there's a bacteria known as the lactobacillus, and there's yeast also. Now, when there's an overgrowth of yeast or even that lactobacillus in the vagina of a woman, it leads to vaginal yeast infection. Might ask the symptoms of vaginal yeast infection. For a woman, the symptoms of vaginal yeast infection might include itching, pains, discharge, and even sometimes odors. Yeast infection is a self-made infection that a woman can cause to her body. Men also are not left out. Men can contract yeast infection through a female partner that has yeast infection already, through poor hygiene, and being uncircumcised. A man can contract yeast infection, and symptoms that would occur during this period of having yeast infection is: number one, you'll be having sore and white patches around your penis, redness of the penis, discharge from the penis, and swelling of the tip or the foreskin of the penis. Yeast infection is one of the commonest or easiest infection that would happen to a woman at one point of our reproductive years. So don't feel so comfortable that no infection has happened to me before. You would always be faced with yeast infection. So it's advisable that you reduce the rate at which you take sugar, and good hygiene of changing your underwears and not wearing your underwears 2 to 3 days. You practice safe sexual life. It's advisable to stick to a proper hygiene, especially for sugar, reducing the rate at which you take sugar, so that the rate at which the risk of having vaginal yeast infection will be reduced, even though you're going to have it at some point in your reproductive years. But it's also advisable that when you're having it, it should not be too much or cause a lot of damage and won't be able to go, because these infections, they don't go easily at the end. When you can't treat them, they start building up. And from yeast infection, you don't know what other infection you cause to yourself, probably syphilis or gonorrhea. Diets also are important. To your vagina, it's important. To your life also, it's important. If you've been following my health talks, you would see that I talked about diet, talking about your body, all are interrelated with each other. So stay blessed out there, stay safe out there. Thank you, and kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more health tips and health talks.